and gentlemen, now at the World AI and RPA show, we've got a great session coming up on the other side, which is the importance of AI in the pandemic response operations. Well, for this session, we're going to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel Francel Margareth Padilla Taborlupa, who's the head executive assistant to presidential advisor on peace, reconciliation and unity, and an IS officer, National Task Force against COVID-19 Philippines. Well, recently adjudged as one of the top 10 women in cybersecurity Philippines 2020 and one of the top 30 in security in ASEAN 2021, her career has taken her through 25 years of study, research, teaching, and administration. With this, I'd now like to welcome on the stage and screen Lieutenant Colonel Francel Margareth to join us. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Francel, to join us and being a part of our wonderful show today. It's a great honor having you. The stage and screen is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Hello to everyone. May I request to share my screen, please?
Yes, please, go ahead.
All right. So today we're going to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and AI. So this COVID-19 pandemic is a story of us. The whole world has been hit, and some countries, if not most, have been hit hard. So I have been with the pandemic response for the Philippines since the onset of this pandemic, working with the National Task Force against COVID-19. And as the operating arm of the national government, we do all of the groundwork. So from planning to implementation, we did a whole of government approach in our COVID response. So we have all hands on deck, led by the secretaries from all government agencies, which we partnered with, and we also partnered with non-government organizations, international organizations such as the WHO, UNICEF, United Nations, and the economic and business sectors as well to address the economic implications of COVID-19. So this is where I was able to observe the importance of digital solutions that aid in the pandemic response. So as Vladimir Putin once said, whichever country leads in artificial intelligence or AI will eventually lead the world dynamics. So the same is true in the pandemic response. The pandemic on COVID-19 has pushed companies and organizations over the technology tipping point and transformed how we handle our daily lives forever. So probably when asked, who led the transformation of your company, the digital transformation of your company, the answer would be COVID-19. So today, AI technologies and tools play a key role in every aspect of COVID-19 crisis response. So artificial intelligence in the current realm of the pandemic is used in 5 areas. So it's used in early alarms or notifications to understand the virus and accelerate medical research on drugs and its treatments. We also have implemented data dashboards to respond to the health crisis through personalized information and learning and analysis of data. So we also have medical and prognostic diagnosis to assist in preventing or slowing the virus spread through surveillance and contact tracing. We also used it for cure therapy to detect and diagnose the virus and predict its evolution towards creating new variants. And with this, we monitor and recover and improve our early warning tools. And finally, we also use it for social control, for security, for maintaining peace and order. So how do we implement it? So the sample of its uses are the use of AI to read radiology reports for faster reading of reports and not needing a lot of medical healthcare workers to do it. And also, it's also being used to find out if older drugs will work against the COVID-19 or maybe to repurpose them to treat known symptoms of the new virus. It's also used for contact tracing, as I said earlier, as in one country, it was used for facial recognition to detect violation of quarantine for those known to be infected. And this was done in China. And also, it's also even used for robots and drones to minimize human contact with patients. So in terms of its implementation, since no country has been fully prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been observing one another, each country, and looking at the best practices and how we can implement it on our own countries to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on a local basis. So different countries have different approaches and different implementations. And for AI, for instance, UK developed a COVID-19 symptom tracker to determine which areas are considered as high-risk areas. So the most areas with the most infections are considered as high-risk areas. In South Korea, they came up with a contact tracing app dubbed as Corona 100M. So the name of the app itself speaks for what it does. And on the other hand, Singapore, which is considered as one of the most successful countries in handling COVID through their contact tracing app called Trace Together. So here in my country, however, in the Philippines, being a developing country with not much high-end digital infrastructures in place, we have implemented systems for the aid in our pandemic response. But the dilemma that we have been encountering here is that they remain siloed, so to each his own, and not yet interconnected with one another. Thus, it lacks centralized control, which is what we are actually working on as of the moment, led by our DICT, in consonance with other government agencies and non-government agencies as well. So we move on with the examples of countries that we should emulate, or those that has utilized AI most. So we have countries that used robots and drones. So we have China, where the police use drones for crowd dispersal and to determine if one person is fit to enter certain establishments. We also have Singapore, this ones I've stated earlier as well, who uses robots to sanitize and clean hospitals, particularly contaminated areas. So not much PPEs to use and not much human contact. And in India, drones are used as watchdogs to see people's movement and track whether they go from one place to another. So the bottom line is that AI can be used as tools and technologies which can be employed to support efforts for policymakers, the medical community, and society in general to manage every stage of the crisis as well as its aftermath. So we don't see the end of the line soon, but we need to hang in there. So it can be used in several ways. So as you can see on your screens, you can see how it's going to be utilized from detection to prevention, response, recovery, and also to accelerate research. So in several ways, it's seen on your screens how it's going to be used. So AI is likewise vital in addressing the infodemic that has proliferated in tandem with the pandemic, but it is the pandemic which is online, and it is also endangering us in real life as well. It is also used for telemedicine, or the use of chat boxes to render treatment options and advice to patients without the need for face-to-face contact. So AI tools can help monitor the economic crisis and recovery, for example, via satellite, social networking, and other data such as Google's community mobility reports. And with this data gathered through AI, we can learn from the crisis and build early warning for future outbreak. So moving forward, we have our to-do list. So for most, we should encourage multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder cooperation and data exchange, both nationally and internationally by the AI community, the medical community, developers, policymakers, to formulate the problem, identify relevant data, and open data sets, and share tools and train models. We should also recognize that AI is not a silver bullet. AI systems based on machine learning work by identifying patterns in data and requires large amounts of data of these same patterns. So the outputs are only as good as the training data. And in some cases, Diagnostic claims have been called into question, and some chatbots have also been given different responses to questions and symptoms. And so this is some kind of a dilemma. So we should ensure that AI systems are deployed responsibly. This is particularly true for temporary measures, population control, and monitoring, as some AI systems raise concerns about purpose specification and the danger that personal data could be reused in ways that infringe privacy and other rights. So we should also develop and build upon AI-powered monitoring tools that enable research without sacrificing privacy. And last but not the least, we should learn from this wave of the pandemic to prepare for its likely re-emergence or the onset of a new pandemic. One measure is to commit to research on AI technologies that can learn from limited data that we have now. So all in all, the world is our oyster, and we should utilize the full potential that AI has to offer. So hand in hand through cooperation, we hope to see the light at the end of the tunnel in this pandemic and live and go forth with our lives in the new normal. So that's for my message for today. Thank you. Back to you, Bhavana.
Thank you so much for joining us. What a great start you've given, Lieutenant Colonel. We'd really like to thank you humbly for your presence today. Thank you once again.